I know you're a fan of Ben King. There's been some trade talk start to do the rounds recently. There's a couple of new podcasts. One of them is Gettable on AFL with Cow Toomey and Riley Beveridge. The other is the Tradies podcast with Mitch Cleary and Sam McClure. On today's edition of the Tradies, they had an in-depth chat about the future of Gold Coast Ben King. Let's have a listen.
He's contracted till the end of next year. He's just coming back from a knee. He ain't hanging around if Gold Coast keep going down this path. Richmond are clearly going to have a crack at Ben King because they're looking for a replacement for Jack Rewalt.
Yes.
But Collingwood have long been looking, Mitch, for a full forward, really since who? Travis Cloak. It's pretty, I mean, Melbourne will have a look at Ben King. He's not going to be spared offers. They'll be coming out of the woodwork for him.
I'll be concerned, they already would be, because they did, when he signed that contract, and the guys discussed that today, pitch the fact that the Gold Coast have turned the corner and signed for 2 years until the end of 2024. They're paying him big money, reportedly 800,000 to 900,000, and then see where the club is at. Now, there hasn't been any sign that the club's improving. One club that will go all in for Ben King is Geelong. And I read Jake Niles' piece on Charlie Curnow over the weekend. They had a real crack at him. Tom Hawkins, you would think by the end of 2024 is finished. Geelong is the smoky club to have a real go at Ben King. Gerard, how concerned should the Gold Coast be with another player potentially walking out the door?
Oh, I think they'd be super concerned. I mean, if the club hasn't turned around in this iteration and play finals, well then, you know, he's done his tour of duty. He'll be looking like everybody else to maybe move on. I mean,
what would you advise him? Like his management group, I think it's Connor Sports.
What I would advise him right now is do not think about anything else except playing Geelong on the weekend.
Yep.
Your future will be assured. You're going to be a wealthy man, whether you're at the Gold Coast, whether you're at one of the Melbourne clubs. I wouldn't have thought that was news, Kane. I would have thought that was just pretty basic stuff that everybody on the Gold Coast and everybody at every club is going to be gettable with the right offer if, in fact, they've got some sort of want to move. So I'd be just saying forget about all this noise. Just see if you can get yourself a kick on the weekend because he's an important part of whether or not they play finals. I mean, if he doesn't play finals, it may well be because he's not playing good footy. So that's what I would be saying to him. Forget about the future. Just get on with this week.
The other one that is probably more topical, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that, is Darcy Parish because he's a free agent, so clubs can get him for nothing.
Yep.
Would you, if you were Essendon, let him go?
No, I wouldn't. I saw that today in the paper, and you know, there's going to be, given that there's podcasts and there's wall-to-wall media, there's going to be all manner of discussions about this. But if I'm Essendon, Darcy Parish is a star.
Is he an A grader?
Oh, I think if he's not, he's very close, and he's only got another year or two of doing what he's doing to be regarded as an A grader. He is a high possession winner. I think he can get more damaging with his possessions. That's just potentially a new coach coming in who they've got. His game on the weekend was superb.
Yep.
Highest rating game he's had for a long period of time. Why would you get rid of them? I mean, you need more than one or two or three or four midfielders. That's one of the Suns' problems.
I think that the discussion, though, is if you've got a team that needs a midfielder that's going to offer him $750,000 to $800,000, and Essendon say, okay, you're a really good player and you're important to us, but we think you're $650. Now, it's not a lot of money to leave for after tax for Darcy Parish. He'll have to weigh that up.
I don't think he's changing for an extra $50,000, Kane.
Yeah. No, he might not be. Players have in the past, but perhaps it's an extra 2 years on the contract. The club's prepared to offer him more security than what the Bombers might be. They're the discussions that Essendon will have. They've got a couple of young ones coming through. You know, Colbell's good players we spoke to Hoyne about. Sardis is a player that they've drafted. Hobbs is another one that they've got.
And that's why it's looking good. But why would you accumulate all these young players and then just as you're ready to have enough artillery to go into finals with a meaningful chance to play in big finals, would you start trading them out?
That's why I wanted to ask you the question.
Sense to me.
Gerard, that's why I knew you'd make sense of the discussion, and I wanted to ask the Bombers fans. Say if it was pick 6 as a compensation for Darcy Parish if he left, and you free up the salary cap room because he's gone, would you do that deal? Or would you pay him big bucks to stay? Bombers fans, 1-300-736-736.
But what's big bucks? I mean, if he gets...
Seven,
what he's worth.
Okay.
He'd want to get more than that to be changing clubs.
Is Parish worth 700? What about the Cats? There's two schools of thought here, Jono. Some not worried at all, and they'll get it together. Others, like Daniel Hoyne last night from Champion Data, just a few alarm bells are ringing. Where do you sit?
Yeah, I think there are, and I think internally they would be asking some questions around aspects of the way that they're playing. But like everyone, I think with sides like the Cats and most of the competition, I still think we need to be at 6 weeks. Then we can really start to make some really strong calls on where these teams are at, including the likes of, Essendon and St Kilda that have, won their couple of games, and even the Swans now who have had Gold Coast and Hawks. We know they're a good team, but where are they really going to be at in 4 weeks' time? And I think the Cats fall straight into that basket as well. A lot of talk at the moment around Dangerfield and his form, and has the captaincy,
Guthrie.
had an impact on him. Look, I don't think he's always been a leader, so I don't think the fact that now he's got a C next to his name has had an effect on him as a player. He's just an unbelievable player who just is out of form, hasn't started the season as well as he would have liked. So look for that to change, you'd think, reasonably quickly. The only thing with Danger, though, I would say is that I think he's got the personality to put it all on his shoulders and want to try even harder, which then could have a negative effect on the way that he actually plays or on some of the systems that they may be trying to approach at the Cats. So that's the only thing I'd be careful with if I was Paddy. He's still, and trust me, I've been there. So you got to think of things a little bit more laterally.
Take us there. Did you try to?
Well, in my first year as captain, yes, and it took until the end of the year where it was Matty Boyd and Bob Murphy both grabbed me and said, you got to change things up here, Johnny. You're trying to do too much on your own. You've got guys here that want to jump in and help you, and it's the only way we're going to grow. And you know what? It took that 2 senior players to grab me, and it would have been nice. And you do get left alone a little bit, and that's part of the nature of where Dangerfield's at as a player. Teammates will be leaving him alone a little bit. You know what I mean? Danger will work through this. Well, hang on. It took until, as I said, those 2 guys to grab me at the end of the season, and we have a beer and get some really strong feedback. Okay, this is what we need to change. And you take it on board and you change it. And then all of a sudden, you've got Higgins and Gia and Murphy and Boyd and Cross and all these guys that are jumping on board and taking the team forward, which had a significant play on my thinking as a captain from my second year onwards. And I think that's the same. In some ways, I can see the similarities here with just Danger's ability and want to be the best, but also carry the side on his shoulders.
They're clearly missing Tom Stewart because he's one of the best defenders in the league. But as Healy said last night, they missed him for 4 weeks last year and didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, they did. But prior to that, they missed him with injury, and they did sort of skip a couple of beats. So he's so important to them. I think he's important to some of the young defenders that they do have and that they are rolling through there. And they've got some players, the Cats, that haven't reached the heights yet of last year. When you look at what Close was able to do and Atkins, and that's just naming it too. Even Zach Guthrie, who's a developing player but hasn't reached the heights of what he achieved at the end of last year. That's tough. We know that. That's what makes the good players separate, is the ones that back it up year in, out, year, game after game, year after year. And those guys had good years, but for the Cats to be the side that they were last year, they need to go to another level again, and they haven't achieved that yet.
They play the Suns, and the Suns' midfield group has got limitations. Jed Anderson had 28 odd possessions in the VFL side, wherever that plays on the weekend. I saw his numbers. Do you think Stewie Dew will look at what they did with Guthrie? They tagged him. He ended up on the back flank and actually nearly got him back in. So if you're going to tag, you've got to keep tagging. Don't let him off the hook on the half-back flank. Do you think he may bring a tagger in and plonk him straight on Cam Guthrie?
Possible. I think he needs to do something like that to at least try and restrict one of the keys for the opposition, because it hasn't worked yet, giving the freelance to his midfielders to go and play, and the opposition are cutting them up the other way. So they've got to look at a solution to that problem, and maybe that's what it is in terms of a tag. But see it right through, and hopefully the tag works from the outset, so it gives the other mids a chance to go to work. Because what you want the Suns tagger potentially to go to, just say it's Guthrie, and so Guthrie becomes a little bit frustrated. Then he goes to you. Then all of a sudden you've got a release. So that's where the tagger has to work to get the frustration in to create the release for someone else.
Right, Jono, let's move into your rolling All-Australian, because there's a lot of people nervous out there.
Oh, this has been fun. This has been a lot of fun this week, mainly because they had one team in my sights.
Yeah.
And it's one team close to Kane's heart.
Oh, it's a bit of payback.
and it's fair to say that every Port Adelaide player that was in round one
how many were there?
might have struggled to hold their spot in round two. That's for sure.
I think that's fair.
There's 4 players that were that had outstanding games in round one that unfortunately didn't back them up in round two and have been pushed sideways, unfortunately, for them as players.
They haven't been pushed
that's,
sideways.
That's not. They've been here to have. That's not to say maybe one or two of them with a good performance next week and a big win might be able to push their way back into the side. But it's tough. Once you're out, it's hard.
If you're out for 2 weeks.
So do you want the outs first? Is that how you want to roll it? Okay, so Max Gawn is out as the ruck.
Yep.
Aliir is out as the key back. Rosie's out.
Yep.
Todd Marshall is out. Horn Francis is out.
Harsh on Marshall. Limited supply. That's
Harsh,
the only one I would
but
argue,
with who's come
with the amount of bagging you've done at the Bulldogs, he had to. There was always going to be payback.
It's Jono's team.
But who's come in for Marshall? You'll understand why. Pickett is out for Melbourne. Warner is out for the Swannies, and Jordan De Goey is out for
Warner.
The
Drop Warner.
Pies. I've dropped Warner. He was average. 15 disposals on the weekend.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Didn't fire a shot.
Fair enough.
They're the outs for the All Oz team. How do you want to go from here, Kane? Do you want me to from the back line? Here we go. So Cox from Freo, Lever and
stays in. Cox
stays in. Lever stays in. Sard stays in. Sinclair
he's
from the
good.
Saints has been very good.
Yep.
Wilkie gets a jump up from the Saints to centre half back. Nick Dacos on the half-back flank. Josh Dacos on the wing. Petrarca in the middle, holds his spot just. Errol Goulden on the wing, goes from sub to a position in the team. Curnow from the Blues. Cameron from the Catters. And Dane Zorko jumps straight in after an outstanding performance.
One game.
Yeah, one game. We've only played 2 for the year.
I know, but you've swung the axe for one bad game.
Okay, so
and you've rewarded one good game.
I did because I thought his one good game was a lot better than Horn Francis's game that got him in the week before. So that was the replacement there. Toby Green from GWS. Larkey as the Coleman medal leader remains. And you asked for that, Kane. That was a good effort.
It was good.
He kicked
I said
4.
that during the week. It was one of the players that I really recognised during the week because that's what we wanted. We wanted to bridge the gap between his bags and his games where he'd kicked none or one, which happened too often. He played against a good defensive team, against a good opponent, and answered the challenge. So I was wrapped for him. I thought he was terrific.
Exactly, holds his spot. Now, this is the forward pocket. The other forward pocket is well and truly up for grabs, and I can see it being the one position that's going to be very difficult unless, because no small forward. Well, Pickett's out, but so
how many goals you got to kick?
From a small forward.
Baseline 40.
40, yeah, that's a minimum from a small forward, and the other work that can go with it. So Tommy Papley jumps in to the forward pocket position. Maybe his hanger got him over the line. Darcy Cameron jumps up to ruck. I thought he was excellent. He's had a couple of good games.
Yep.
Jack Steele stays in the side. Unfortunately for Jack being injured, there'll be a replacement for him in the next 7 days. Davies Uniacke, of course, from North Melbourne's played 2 rippers. My bench is Pendles, Sheasel.
Slowly.
Pendles holds his spot on the bench. Sheasel holds his spot on the bench. Unlucky not to get a spot in the team, but Sinclair and Dacos are performing too well. Same with Rioli from Richmond. Zach Merritt comes in from the Bombers. He's had 2 excellent games and has fought his way onto the bench. And Tim Taranto from Richmond is the new sub. So ins are Wilkie, Darcy Cameron, Curnow, Cameron, Zorko, Papley, Merritt, Taranto.
Who's your second ruck, Jono?
I don't have one.
Taranto. No, he's a sub. Can't be in.
Can't be. Larky in the forward line. Hopefully that becomes maybe a big Tom Hawkins or someone like that towards the end of the year.
Is there any rules around this? Because there's certainly a bias towards the midfield. Kane?
Well, I've got 2 traditional wingmen on here at the moment.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, which I'm really strong on.
But you've only got 1 traditional ruckman, but there's no... I'm just looking for someone else if he goes
queries
down.
over whether we name a sub as well.
You got to have a sub.
That's you can make that decision. I'm happy to fly either way with that.
The official team doesn't have a sub.
Will it this year, though?
Jared, I don't know.
It was put to the selectors
last
year.
Sitting next to you may have raised this.
Last year you couldn't have a sub as a medical sub, but this year being a tactical sub,
it was raised last year, Jono. So there's another person about to be named. But he couldn't get in, unfortunately.
Couldn't get in.
Because it was knocked on the head. They went to the bylaws, didn't they, Kane?
I don't know whether... Would you want to be All-Australian sub, though, really? Would you really want that as an honour?
You just name 5 on the bench.
You can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't name 5 on the bench. You've got to either have 4 and a sub or just 4.
You wait until you
I'm
see
telling
what the
you
weather
now,
is.
no player wants to be the sub in the All-Australian team.
We're gonna put that out on our Twitter as a poll, and
unless it's a trip to Ireland attached, then you want to be sub. But other than that,
should there be a sub named for the All-Australian team this year?
Or 5 on the
Jono,
bench.